I'm going to go ahead and jump into it. I'm going to try not to kill you with slides. I've only got about 10, so should be able to have some dialogue as well. All right, so my slides are titled The Opportunity of the Unexpected. The main reason for this is because I had no idea what was going to happen going into my transition, and I definitely couldn't have seen the way that everything transpired and where I would be now. I actually started my terminal leave 368 days ago, so it's been just over a year of me not being in the Army now. And I had no clue how it would turn out. So with that being said, my name is Peter Cline. I'm the founder of Boots to Books. And I'm also the Chief People Officer at the Whole Cyber Human Initiative, which is something I'll talk about as we get a little more into the slides, but it has a lot to do with VetSecCon as well, in terms of breaking the doors off of employment for both cyber and IT, and translating a lot of the skills you've learned in the military to, cyber and IT and landing those roles. So let's get into it. Overview. All right, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am in my transition, some of the errors I made and how I had to ask for help, which was one of the main reasons Boots to Books started, because I really did need help when I was transitioning. I'm going to talk about the transition and some of the common errors I see, especially with Boots to Books. We've helped over 500 veterans in the last 7 months. There's a lot of the same issues we see, especially leading into our hiring fair, which we had in September. And when we did feedback and lessons learned with some of those companies, they all had relatively similar comments. So there's some things that we can do as vets and we can do as job seekers to better prepare ourselves. So we'll get into that. We'll talk about where to start if you're just entering your transition, or maybe you already started your transition some months ago and you're just a little bit stuck, or you're changing careers. That's completely fine. Plenty of people do it. We'll talk about some actionable steps you can take to get moving down that road. Why your skills matter in the military. I know you've probably heard this 200 times from a bunch of different people giving you motivational speeches, but it's important that you know what skills you have that are marketable and that employers want, A, and B, that you know how you can market them yourself and you can actually pitch their value to an employer. Because when that time comes and you're sitting in an interview, once you get past the ATS or whatever application process they have, you really do have an opportunity to show your skills and your aptitudes beyond what a resume can show. And so being able to actually dictate and, describe why the things and the skills you've developed in the military matter go a long way. We'll get into how to market yourself a little bit. I know that's a topic on one of the sessions, but I want to reemphasize how important that is, especially through networking, LinkedIn, going to events like this. Marketing yourself is just one of the best things you can possibly do, and it doesn't take much time. What's adding value? This is something I added. It's a little random, but I remember during my transition, all the events I went to and the events I still go to, one of the common things I hear is you have to add value, you have to add value, add value. And so I want to break into that a little bit and talk about what veterans can do, especially coming into an entry-level role, to add value and what that really looks like for you, because you're not going to completely redevelop, some process your first week at the company. You're not going to completely change it unless, of course you do, but you definitely can add value from day one, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And then to end it, we'll talk about how Boots to Books and also the Whole Cyber Human Initiative can help you get there. Okay, who I am. So my story and Boots to Books story is a story about asking for help, as plain as it could possibly be. So I joined the Army in 2017 as an infantryman. And I absolutely loved it. I did well on the ASVAB and I had my choice, and I wanted to go be an infantryman so very badly. My knees and back now look back on that decision and hate me for it, but it's okay. So I joined the infantry in 2017. I completed basic training in December and was lucky enough to get stationed on Fort Benning, which is exactly where I did all of my training. And so I had the joy of spending years and years in Georgia, which was fantastic. But through my time in the military, I got promoted. I was a team leader for a while. I eventually ended up competing alongside one of my soldiers in the Fort Benning Non-Commissioned Officer of the Year competition. This is just a few months before I was actually transitioning out of the military. And we won side by side, which was very cool. So I believe I won in June and separated in October. So me and one of my soldiers won that, which was extremely funny because leading into my transition, I got the joy of telling the sergeant major of my base why I was going to get out of the military. And he was not happy to hear about that. But it is what it is. And so I'm going into my transition, and I thought I had a very clear picture of what I wanted. And that was to attend school, and break into the business world, wherever that may be. I knew I wanted to try my hand in politics at some point. I had a lot of aspirations, and I thought it would be easy. And I thought that having some general sense of where you want to go was really all you needed. So I quickly realized that's not the case. I was applying to all these jobs. I was applying to all these schools. And I was struggling. I really was. I was having a hard time figuring it out. And I had done my SFL tap. I had taken it seriously. I'd reached out to people for help. And I was lost. I was confused. And I ultimately reached out to my friend, who's now the co-founder of Boots to Books, Aubrey Sign. And I basically said to him, hey, I'm doing the common application. I'm trying to get into college. I'm applying to all these jobs. And I just have no clue what I'm doing. Right. And so he looks at it and gives me this personalized, immersive support and sits down with me and walks through each step of it. Right. And finally, we finish, and I finally send in the application, and I get an academic scholarship to my dream school, which was blowing me away. So now I've preserved some of my benefits, which will allow me to go get a master's, go get a law degree, whatever it may be when the time comes, and also go to my dream school thanks to the help I got from one of my friends, which was amazing. And so me and Aubrey and I were ecstatic, and we were, celebratory because we were going to be at the same school and whatnot. But we quickly realized that not every veteran was getting that help, and that although I had been, successful in step one of my transition, which was get into a competitive school and, attain a competitive education, there were a lot of people who were still struggling. There were a lot of people who didn't have a resource like that readily available in their life, who was also willing to give them that time. And so thus came Boots to Books. And when we first started, we really thought that we were going to be a way that people could get into college, and, help cover some of the fees from the resources, the applications, the various other things that come with it. And we quickly realized that that's not all it was going to be. We gained massive support. We raised tens of thousands of dollars in the first months. There were employers reaching out that want to hire veterans. There still are. And it quickly spread into employment as well. So we've been lucky enough to put on hiring fairs for veterans. In the past month, we've had veterans getting jobs at Oracle. We had veterans get jobs at AWS recently. And so we've really transitioned into both education and employment now, which we'll get into a little more how we can help you guys. So this gets into the transition issues a little more. So on the screen actually is a real rejection letter I got when I was separating from the military. For a job that I thought I exceeded the requirements for, and was maybe even a shoo-in for, and obviously I was not, which is kind of funny. And so it goes into a couple of the transition issues I see a lot, and the people that volunteer with Boots to Books and WCH I see a lot. We get a lot of veterans who do want to break into cyber and IT, and their skills, their aptitudes, and their experience 100% line up with that. However, there's a fallacy when you get out of the military that because you're a veteran, I don't know if everyone experiences this, but I know I did, that because I was in the military, because I had won these competitions, I'd served so well, I got out, I was thinking everybody's going to want to hire me. This fallacy of, oh, I'm a veteran. Oh, everyone wants me. Oh, everybody knows, the value we can bring to an organization. And that's not the truth. People do appreciate veterans, and there is a lot of value you can bring to an organization, but it's not the duty of each company, or it's not going to be something that they're going to take into their hands to translate everything and to completely understand your skills. There is some degree of translating for us to do. And so the fallacy of everyone wants to hire me is one to get past when getting out of the military. You need to learn to value your experience, but also find the equilibrium between valuing that experience and it making you overconfident. Okay, so number two is, what do I want to do? So a lot of people get out of the military and they're not exactly sure which career path is right for them. And that's completely fine. Your MOS shouldn't dictate what you do. You shouldn't have to, have one set career path when getting out of the military. However, when you are getting out of the military and you are looking at whatever industry you want to break into, or, let's say you want to be a SOC analyst, right? Or you will want that in several other different roles. Narrowing it down, doing informational interviews, reaching out to people for help, reaching out to some of these organizations that actually feature a lot of people in these different roles who are willing to help. Do that. Find out about the daily duties going on. Find out about the tasks they do, their company culture. What about it you might like or hate? And once you start narrowing down those roles, we'll get into this a little later in the first steps. Once you start narrowing down what roles you actually want to fill and think you could fill, it's a lot easier to set that path and find those things you need to attain to fill that position. Blanket resumes. I am extremely guilty of this one when I first got out of the military. And past that was making one resume that I thought was, just a very good resume and sending it out to, 20, 30 jobs, and being surprised when none of them wanted to hire him. Target your resume. The job description is chock full of words they want to see in your resume, words that are repeated often, right? Things like that. Like if they repeat problem solving 6 times in the job description, let's throw that in your skills, right? Easy things like that. And then look at the requirements. Look at what they want from you. What have you done in your past that lines up with that? For instance, if it's some quality assurance job, right? And you were a team leader in the military and you PMCS vehicles every single week, right? You conducted quality assurance on, millions and millions of dollars of government equipment weekly. It's all about how you phrase it and how you convey your military experience to the hirer. Not networking and not asking for help. I wasn't active on LinkedIn until a little bit after I was out, which was a complete mistake. Now I see a lot of veterans and a lot of transitioning military get on LinkedIn long before SFL TAP or any transition program asks them to, and that's amazing. Because LinkedIn, there are literally thousands of people always available to help. There are resources that otherwise would take hours to find and scavenging through the internet or maybe VA pamphlets to find readily available from great people. Being on LinkedIn and active on it is invaluable to your transition. And then there comes the second half of that, which is asking for help. Obviously, my story is one that revolves around asking for help, and I still do it to this day. I think it's one of the best things in the world. You can ask Paul Cummings, ask Christoph Full, and all of them. I reach out all the time for help with cyber and IT, for events, because why not? Everyone is here to give you a chance and to help you, especially the people in this community and the people speaking at this event and hosting this event. It's a shame, there's a lot of people out there to help, I guess is the easiest way to put it. And asking's the first step. And the last thing is not putting effort into the right places. And this goes into a lot of the asking for help and the networking as well, and the kind of deciding which role might be right for you. And what I mean by that is if you want a certain position, you should look at the requirements to get that position or what they're looking for in candidates, right? So you need to narrow your job search down to at least a few roles so you can at least find the basic requirements for those roles. Because if you don't, and you're just out, getting certification after certification or doing random training courses, they honestly might not align with that role you do want and what they actually are looking for. And you can ultimately end up with, a bucket of certifications and a great amount of education and events attended, but not be closer to that role that you really want. Okay. Now we'll go into where to start. So you can start really anytime. I know a lot of people who have transitioned out of 20-year careers in the military and done something completely different when they got out. Their skills do translate differently than they would if it was the same role, obviously, but still to some degree. One second. But this can really be done at any point in your transition. I've done 2 completely different industries since separating. 3, if you count Boots to Books. I worked in politics. I work in finance now. And Boots to Books is the nonprofit realm. And I've had to do that switch, change my resume, seek new skills, market myself in a different way. So I'm a firsthand example of that being completely possible. But you do need to do a couple things to set yourself up for success if you are going to do that. So the first one, like we spoke about, role. What role do you want and who's getting hired for it? So what I mean by that is you don't need to have a specific role at a specific company the day you get out of the military and be locked in like this is what I'm doing, right? No, that's not how it works, but you do need to have a general sense of the roles you want, right? So obviously find the industry you want to work in. You guys are all at VetSecCon, so I assume you're looking at IT and cybersecurity. Otherwise, thanks for coming here at 8 a.m. to support me, but might not be the event. but find the industry, right? And there's a lot of different routes. There's so many different things in cyber. I actually, if you would like a link, I have a list of all the different roles in cyber, which is a great resource. I'm sure Paul Cummings has showed that as well. But narrowing that down. So how do you do that? First, do your own research, right? Do independent research. Find what the daily duties look like. Find what they would actually be doing and look at what you've done and enjoyed and see what lines up, right? Knock out whatever roles you can on your own first. And let's say you get it down to like 8 things that interest you, right? Do informational interviews. There's Veterati, there's Boots to Books, there's Vets to Industry, there's VetSecCon, there's Whole Cyber Human Initiative. Every single one of these groups has people in cyber roles that are willing to do informational interviews and help you actually realize what these roles entail. And on top of that, on November 12th, there's an event, which is a Cyber Career Expo. That'll happen at 4 p.m. Eastern, and it features 15 people in different positions in cyber and IT, all different levels, entry to exec. It'll give you a chance to actually learn about some of those different roles a little more. So if that's something you're struggling with, I definitely suggest you attend that event. So the whole point of narrowing down the roles you're looking for, besides knowing what you want to apply for, is finding out who's getting hired for it, right? Looking at those job descriptions, this is one of the things that Christoph always says to me, and it's one of the best things I've heard. Look at 5 different positions, right? So let's say you want to be a SOC analyst, look at 5 different positions, different companies for that. Find what is commonly repeated throughout, right? What do they regularly want from you? What are the desired qualifications? What's the experience they want? What certifications do they want, right? What words are commonplace? Those things are things that should be on your resume if you want to land one of those roles. And doing that, giving you a clear sight picture of how you're going to get that role has been the most effective thing we've seen to get veterans jobs. It has gotten people jobs at AWS. It's gotten guys hired at Oracle. It is invaluable narrowing that down. But it does take work, and it does take you reaching out, because there's not going to be, mentors lining up at your front door to conduct informational interviews. But they are definitely willing to do so. So skills, and it goes into this. What skills do you have? How can you make your skills meet the job description? What do you have to learn? So there's places you can do self-assessments. With You With Me is a great resource, right? Self-assess your skills. Find out what you actually do have and be harsh on yourself. This isn't a time to wreck your self-confidence, but do take a look and really think, if you got hired today, what skills could you contribute? What do you have? If you were asked in an interview about these skills, could you convey your expertise on them? So you find out what skills you do have, right? We've narrowed it down. We know what skills the job description wants, right? So how can you make your skills meet the job description? How can you make that experience that you have line up with the experience that they're looking for, right? So compare the two. And once you compare the two, you'll realize that there's probably some things you don't have if you're, actively seeking employment in it still. And that's what you're going to have to learn. And there's a lot of resources out there, and a lot of, especially for veterans, military spouses, and transitioning military, there are so many different ways to get certifications and different trainings for free. So I'd look into, IVMF, Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse, Boots to Books, Onward to Opportunity, Cyber Bites, I believe. There's a bunch of different foundations that will help you get free training, Whole Cyber Human Initiative. So look into your skills, look into that job description, be comparative, be a little harsh on yourself, and then look at all the free resources to you to help fill that skills gap and make you ideally what they're describing in a job description. So then it goes into application and interviews. And so translating your military experience is obviously a big one here, but it is not impossible. It's pretty easy. There's a lot of sites that will help you translate it. It's not pretty easy, but there's a lot of sites that will help you translate your bullets. And then going into these informational interviews, having one of those resumes on you, right? Let's say you've tried to translate it. Ask some questions, get some help. A lot of the time, the people who do these informational interviews have an opportunity to get a referral bonus. And so keep in touch with them. They actually do want your success, probably for you and for themselves as well. So they're motivated to help you. It sounds shallow, but it's true. People do really want to help, but they also will get a referral bonus in some places, which is even more incentive. So look into that. You should look for assistance on the inside, right? A lot of people say that you shouldn't apply somewhere unless you've tried to reach out to somebody on the inside that works there, tried connecting with them, tried asking, right, who they're hiring right now. How does my resume look? If they're another fellow veteran, they're probably very willing to look at it and help you. They should be. If you can't find someone, look out for mentors, look out for other people in the industry. There's a lot of people in cyber and IT I know that are willing to connect with you, look at your resume, do interview prep with you, and make sure that when you actually do go into that, that hiring event, that interview, that application process, that you're competitive, and you actually have all the intel, let's say, that you could possibly need going into it. And there's a lot of resources out there that are willing to help you build a resume. Boots to Books is one. Lori Norris is fantastic and has been doing it for a long time. And Whole Cyber Human Initiative is another one that is happy to help with that. All right, so the value veterans bring. This is what I was talking about earlier. So I know that everybody has heard that veterans bring a lot of value, and you've probably gotten a speech from someone at some point in your life that was a super motivational type thing, and that's not exactly what I'm trying to give you. You see these 4 skills here, and you know that you bring them, and you've probably heard this 100 times before. And so why am I taking your time to tell you about it? The reason is that knowing you have these skills is fantastic, but your ability to convey them to employers is a completely different thing, right? So leadership, work ethic, teachability, and the plethora of others. Plethora of others include stress management, handling multiple timelines, handling multiple stakeholders in different events, general management expertise in stressful environments. So having these skills and having the ability to convey them not only in a resume, not only in your application and your interview process, but on your LinkedIn as well, right? Marketing yourself through that. And being able to, when you get in that room, really sit down and talk about your military service, not like you're trying to explain it or walk them through it, but make them see the value in it, make them see the things you did when they were, when they were 18 years old and they were fresh starting college and you were managing a team of, 5 people and millions of dollars on a range. That's a lot of value. That's a lot of stress and, management expertise that's developed. It's just conveying that and, having the ability to recognize that these skills do exist and there's no, imposter syndrome or whatever it may be called. You did earn them and you've developed them over years. It's just conveying that value to employers. And I will say, going into this a little bit more, Boots to Books and Paul Cummings and Whole Cyber Human Initiative have been trying and succeeding at getting employers to come out to our hiring events, to take our veterans. And more, they've been realizing the value that veterans bring to companies. I can't stress this enough. Each one that's been hired, we've had the recruiter reach out, we've had a hiring manager reach out, and they're happy to have them. And they want to return to the hiring events, and they want to keep hiring veterans. You see Amazon announced that it wants to hire 100,000 veterans by 2024. The value is being seen more and more, and the more that veterans do get placed in these competitive companies and do well, their value will be realized more. Their voice will be heard. So it really is, it's changing for the better. But it comes down to, not only us putting in the effort to land these positions, landing these positions, putting in the effort as leaders, and even as subordinate leaders to voice the value of veterans and to prove it, work your, for lack of a better word, ass off. So the value of veterans. So marketing yourself. I know this is a session, so I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I want to reemphasize how important this is. I did not network enough. I did not engage the community enough, and I didn't share what I learned enough when I was getting out. And these 3 things have landed people jobs. So networking, it's simple. There's, 101 people who talk about networking. But I think some people don't realize some of the easy tips and tricks. So I'll throw a couple of those out there. Going on LinkedIn and just connecting with everybody is fantastic, and that's great. And you should grow your network. But there's search tools, there's filters. Let's say you wanted to break in and be a SOC analyst. You could look up SOC analyst. I don't want to waste anybody's time or question anybody's intelligence, but you can look up SOC analyst and then go into filters, past company. Let's say you're an Army veteran, Army, or select, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, right? And you can just get a list of them, people to connect with who are probably sympathetic to your transition and have the role you want. And you can even filter by company. You could find, one at the exact company you want to work at who was also in your service, probably in the same time period. It just takes you, doing a little bit of work, researching them, connecting, send them a note, say, hey, I'm an Army veteran. I really want to become a SOC analyst. I, am kind of struggling, or I'm not struggling. I just got out. This is where I'm at in the process. You have any time, just do an informational interview. I guarantee you it will go well 99% of the time, unless it's someone that just doesn't check their LinkedIn. Also networking, there's networking events, right? Vets to Industry puts on some fantastic networking events. Boots to Books has some great events. Events like this are fantastic. Going out and being a part of the community, like it says down there, and attending events, learning, going into those with an open mind and the ability to get critiqued. For instance, we had a hiring event or a career coaching event, and we had a couple of veterans who were willing to put their LinkedIns up, who were sharing their stories, their backgrounds, and some of the woes they've gone through in the hiring process, and let the host actually pick it apart, not in a rude way, in a constructive way, and provide him advice. And he's moved forward and landed an internship. He's doing well. But the ability to get critiqued and that vulnerability to step up and be like, maybe I do need some help. Like, let me just send my resume in and get it roasted for a second, right? It's a lot, and it takes some guts to ask for that help, but it helps a lot. So go out, network, engage the community, right? Be active on LinkedIn, make some posts, right? Share stuff that interests you. Be an actual human, right? If you're just out there, posting really monotone, or commenting, liking, never showing any of your personality or anything you care about, like that's not helping you either. Engage the community, post some stuff, show what you like, show that you just completed a Try Hack Me room, and show you're in the top what percent. Be an active member of the community. People see that grows your network by itself, and that goes into learn and share. So me and Paul Cummings talk about this all the time, right? Because there's people doing certifications, they're doing the LinkedIn learning courses, and that's fantastic. And I always love to see when somebody finishes one of those, and that's great, as does Paul. The thing we talk about is nobody ever shares what they learned, right? So it's fantastic if you get a certification, or if you get a skill badge from LinkedIn, or you've done some course or attended some event. That's awesome, right? But don't just post a skill badge, or don't just say, I attended this event, it was fun, right? Write about what you learned, write about what new capabilities you have now acquired from doing that course that you could bring to a company, right? That is a free chance to market yourself and a new skill you just picked up, and have some hard backing right there to certify. Who knows? Maybe someone's out looking for someone with those exact skills, right? And also it goes into networking and engaging the community, right? It just grows your network for you, grows your reach a little more. So this goes into something that people love to say, and it's kind of a business buzzword and also a transition buzzword when looking for a role, or a buzz phrase, I guess. And that's adding value. You hear it all the time. You hear it in the civilian world, you hear it in the transition world. And it's a phrase that is kind of tossed around, and I think not understood by a lot of people transitioning, or maybe they think it entails some things that it doesn't. So when someone says add value, right, it's what are you going to bring to a company, right? How are you going to earn your keep at that company? How are you going to earn the salary they're paying you, or at least make them realize that you soon will be? So this doesn't mean, let's say you're an entry-level person and you're just landing a role. This doesn't mean that you're going to completely redesign, how they track breaches or what, right? You're not going to completely change the system on day one. That's not what they mean, right? But showing up and doing the things you did in the military, learning quickly, right? Innovating, asking questions when you think something could be more efficient, having the actual, the leadership ability, things like that, and actually, driving some new business, driving change. It doesn't mean that you have to be, a salesman on the forefront doing BDR work, trying to sell, but do great work, right? If you consistently overperform at your tasks, people are going to want to come back and get your business. You were literally stating your value right there in the quality of your work. Innovate, right? That goes back into asking questions. What can you change? And that's something you bring from the military. That's awesome. Even though there's, the hierarchical rank structure and you do have to listen to it, there's opportunities to provide input, right? There's a lot of times when you're a subordinate leader and your senior leader does need your input, or you need to make an on-the-fly decision, and improve something. And that's really where you can bring some value here. But adding value does not mean that from day one you were, redefining the wheel at this company, or that you were completely changing the place. Because I've had veterans come on Zooms with me, and really think that from day one, if they're not changing the way the business functions, what are they doing? And that's a great mindset, and you should bring that drive and will to succeed. But you being there and actively learning and showing your ability to take on new roles, new responsibilities like that, like you did in the military, right? I know we all had to take on some things we had no idea what they were, holds a lot of value. And not panicking under stress. Even in my own experience in the civilian workforce, the inability to learn, take on new roles at the drop of a hat is there. I got a new position when I was working in politics as a voter response team to lead that. So when we got reach outs from constituents, the team was responsible for crafting responses and making sure they fit with the candidate's policies. And even then, it was a very quick moving team, and there were other people who wanted to lead it as well. And it was clear that time in the military spent had a huge impact and helped me a lot. And it was clear to not only me, but the people making the selections. So now we'll get into how can Boots to Books help? A little early for me, huh? So some things we've been able to help with in the past, professional certifications. So we actually have a giveaway coming up. It will be in the next week. I believe we are announcing it. So stay tuned. I'm not supposed to give a sneak peek, but there we go. But we do giveaways all the time. The IVMF, Syracuse University, does a lot too. I want to share as many resources as I possibly can with you all. Onward to Opportunity does as well. So Whole Cyber Human Initiative is getting some free trainings. InfoSec Live. There are so many fantastic platforms for free training that Boots to Books is happy to promote as well. And so if that's something you're looking for, you do that. You do that assessment of your skills gap and the job description, and you see that there's some certification or some training you're missing. Reach out to us. We'd be happy to connect you or connect you with someone else that would. Employment. So this has actually been a fantastic month for us. We've had a bunch of veterans get hired at Oracle. We had some people get hired at AWS at the beginning of the month following that hiring event. And so, like I said, employers are realizing the value of veterans so much more. And now they're, coming out to work with us to look for veterans, to look for, that diverse pool of talent that, they'd otherwise been missing. And that's why big companies like Amazon are doing the 100,000 by 2024, right? They want veterans. We're just happy to be a conduit and connect you to them. Higher education, right? So we actually, right, like I told you in the beginning, started on higher education, and that's what we thought our focus was going to be. We're still happy to help out there. So we have a bunch of college students, a bunch of graduates. We're happy to help on applications. We're happy to cover resource fees, happy to cover textbooks, those application fees. And then we use Magoosh, which is kind of a funny name, but it's an e-learning platform that offers LSAT, GRE, and GMAT testing or test preparation. And so we've been able to help a lot of veterans get into law and business schools following their undergraduate degrees because they've scored so highly using that test prep program, which is pretty awesome. Networking. So we're happy to connect you with a bunch of people. We have events that have fantastic people there. We usually are at events like this with other amazing people, and we're happy to network with you and help you connect with ours and find that role and that connection that might help you find that role. Coaching events and other events. So like I said, November 12th, we've got our Cyber Career Expo that we're extremely excited for. I believe the final number is 15 speakers, not including myself, Paul Cummings, or Christoph Fullen. So there will be a representation of a lot of different roles in cyber and IT. I believe there's some sales in there as well, one or two. And it'll really give you a chance to see what these people actually do every day. They're going to come be honest, give you their daily duties, how they landed their role, what their company culture is like. And so that's definitely a good one to come to. Following that, we have coaching events with Christoph Fullen, who is a fantastic cyber and IT career coach, and it's free to veterans transitioning and military spouses. And so we're happy to have you at those. And lastly, support. You can reach out to us at any time. We are so happy to, welcome questions. People need help with certain things, books, whatever it may be. We are extremely prompt on our responses and are happy to help as much as we can. And so that is all I have. I don't want to kill you with 50 whole minutes of slides. So I'll open it up to any questions if anybody has any. I know I talk pretty quickly, but that is all I have for you guys. Anybody have any questions? All right, fantastic. Well, it looks like that's it. I'm going to go ahead and put our email. What level of experience do your vet students usually come to you with? So we've had a huge array, usually very little, usually trying to break into cyber and IT. And we've gotten some that are more at the senior or mid-level, but the majority of them are entry level. If that helps clear it up. And the trainings we do and the giveaways we do are aimed also to cater to entry level people who are trying to break in first. And so there's a lot of support available there. Thank you guys so much for having me. Yeah, I'll put bootstobooks.com again. If any of you guys need any help, if you'd like to talk anymore, you want to run an idea by me, whatever it may be, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can reach out via Boots to Books. I'm more than happy to talk anytime that I have time and that you have time and provide any help I can. But thank you so much for having me and have a great morning. Have a great VetSec.